It's time for Evolve Sales Live. Welcome back. I'm Jonathan Fisher. If you sell B2B and you have a heartbeat, then you're already on the world's #1 business-to-business networking platform, of course, LinkedIn. So how's that working out? If you're like most, you've probably had some degree of success, but the obstacles remain significant. How do you get more qualified prospects to even be willing to connect with you and have conversations? How do you convert more conversations into sales? And how the heck do you scale on LinkedIn? Our guest today has the perfect qualifications to help us with all of these challenges. David Wong has deep-level expertise in e-com, digital advertising, affiliate marketing, and building highly effective direct response sales funnels. He has founded or co-founded 3 businesses so far, including a coffee shop, a multi-million-dollar online store, and a digital marketing firm. He's the co-founder of JD Leads Online, a B2B lead and revenue generation company where he and his team work every day to help clients blow up their sales on LinkedIn. David Wong, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm looking forward to it.
So, and a quick reminder to our audience, you are invited to send your questions in via the chat, and a little later on in the show, we'll get your specific questions answered right here live. So, David, let's start off, if you would, tell us a little bit more about your background and how did you get into doing what you do today?
Sure. So my background is quite, I like to say it's interesting because there was definitely no studies around marketing or anything like that when I was in school. So I very much picked up everything as a freelancer. So dating back to high school, as a freelance photo and video editor and as well as videographer. So I was doing stuff for weddings. I was doing a lot of content for wineries out in Niagara Falls region, a lot of athletic shoots. And then from there, I kind of transitioned to do more work online. So what that meant was just getting into ClickFunnels, doing funnel hacking, ran a lot of Facebook advertising as a freelancer as well. So at one point I was actually working for Grant Cardone and Frank Kern when they had one of their agencies together called Cardone Kern. And for them, I was a media buyer and a funnel builder. And it kind of got to a point where, 10 years later, I was like, you know what? Freelancing is great and all, but I never kind of saw a future in it. I didn't feel like I could build, that wealth or that financial freedom that I wanted doing freelancing. So I said, hey, I want to start my own business. And at that point, it was, November 2019, and I started messaging all my freelancer clients, and I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I'm looking to drop all my freelance clients so that I can start building my own business. When in fact, like in hindsight, I'm like, that probably shouldn't have dropped all my clients out of the out of the gate. But I did that. And so one of the clients that I was working with since August of 2015, her name's Jess. She had her own marketing agency at the time. And what ended up happening a week after I kind of like broke off our working relationship together was she sent me a message on WhatsApp and was like, hey, how open-minded are you about doing this thing together? Because she knew that I wanted to start my own Facebook advertising agency, and she had her own online marketing agency as well. And for me, I took a couple of days and I was like, do I want to split this 50-50 this one, or do I want to just do it all by myself? And the kind of thing that hit me was that, I'm really great at operations, the delivery of stuff. Give me a problem, I can probably find you a solution and put it together and piece it really nicely and automate it and give it back to you. But the thing that I was never really good at was sales. Back in the day when anytime I had to get on sales calls, I would be super nervous, super antsy. I would go do jumping jacks, push-ups on the floor before I got on the call, just to like release some of that energy before I actually hopped on. So I knew that Jess was like, she just loved doing the sales side of things. I'm like, it kind of made sense for us to do, front end, back end, to partner together. So at that time, we actually started JD Leads Online together. So this client of mine for 5 years became a business partner. And so we've been doing this for 2.5 years now. It's just been a fantastic journey for me, transitioning from a freelancer to a business owner, entrepreneur. And realistically for me, like, you may have noticed that I never talked about LinkedIn at all during this time. It's because I actually learned LinkedIn and figured everything out about social selling since starting this agency. Because when we started this agency, we were supposed to be Facebook advertising plus social selling because we were wanting to merge both of our worlds together. But it got to a point a few months in where we were like, you know what, we just had to niche down because we focused specifically on social selling, B2B, LinkedIn. And that's where we are now.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, as I mentioned in the intro, LinkedIn is a place where everyone already is trying to play. I think there's a lot of frustration, frankly, among many in business development as to how properly to use LinkedIn. It's a lot easier to get it wrong than get it right. So I think you're very smart to niche in on that. So our topic today really is about generating sales on LinkedIn. And so if you could just speak broadly first, and we'll get deeper in a minute, but how are tech company founders and leaders and business development people typically getting this wrong? What are some of the top mistakes you see being made?
Yeah. Okay. I can attest to this because I had my expectations of LinkedIn when I first started getting into it as well, especially coming from like a paid advertising space where things were a lot more instant. So I think the biggest challenge a lot of founders or even anybody who's trying to market on LinkedIn is having is that it's just not understanding what an organic strategy really means, right? They expect that they start marketing today, they'll get calls tomorrow, and they'll get clients, the very next day, which is kind of true for Facebook ads. Like potentially you can start an ad today, you start getting calls in a couple of days. You didn't have to send any connection invites, you didn't have to build any rapport yet. So it feels a lot more instant, right? You run the ad and you start getting the call. Whereas with LinkedIn, this is where the organic part comes in. You got to first vet the individual on Sales Navigator or find the right person you want to reach out to. That takes maybe a day. You got to connect with that person. But when you send a connection invite, you got to wait a couple of days for them to actually accept it. So that may take another 5 days. And then after they accept, now you got to wait until they actually reply you. And after they reply to you, now you got to go back and forth, nurture that relationship before you actually book a call. So all in all, that could probably take 30 or more days from the day that you found them on LinkedIn, vetted them, connected with them, started a conversation, and booked a call. So, back to Facebook. Again, Facebook or any paid advertising feels a lot more instant. But you realistically could have ran that ad for like 15 days. And that person may not even be targeted at all because even if they were a target, you would then still need to nurture that person. Whereas with LinkedIn, it takes 30 days, but that person already came nurtured because you found out that person is target. That's definitely someone you want to talk to. They accepted your invite. You had a conversation back and forth before they booked the call. That trust level is already much higher than it is versus someone who booked in a call through Facebook ad. So that it's that organic piece that it's hard for, I think, some business owners to kind of wrap their head around, especially when the Facebook advertising side of things has been so sexy the last couple of years. Now transitioning into the to the LinkedIn side of things, it's like, okay, you really got to be patient with the process and trust this, just trust the process.
It sounds like there actually are pros and cons because in reality, maybe we're not even comparing apples to apples if we're talking about digital advertising, whether that's on Google Ads or whether that's on Facebook. It's a little different animal. Maybe it compares more to real world networking or conventions or other ways of getting business that we might call old school. They're not totally old school. Those all still work today, by the way. But that's probably more. Would you agree? Is that more of an apples to apples comparison? A and B. In reality, that means we're actually saving a lot of time here on LinkedIn. Is that true?
Absolutely. I think especially since I don't like referring back to the pandemic as like the starting point of this, but realistically, that's where kind of everybody was like, oh crap, there's no more in-person events anymore. Where am I gonna get business? And everybody started coming online, and the place where they can replicate that same in-person engagement that they used to have at conferences, networking, social gathering, clubs, it's on LinkedIn. So you're right on with that.
Well, and are there other key mistakes being made? So obviously not understanding that this is a different animal, and so maybe the expectations are misaligned. That would be one key mistake on LinkedIn. What's another one that strikes you as very common out there today?
So really briefly again, patience. That's one of the things. You just got to be patient with the process. I get it. Time is money. And as a business owner, every day, every dollar counts. So that's one of the key things for sure. But another big piece is just not understanding the buyer's journey. So if you look at like a buyer's pyramid, right, 30% of people will never be interested in your product. That's fine. And then you go up a tier, there's 30% of people who are just not problem aware that they even have that problem or that the solution is even out there. And there's above that, there's 20% of people who are problem aware, but might not actually be actively looking for the solution. And then there's 17% of people above that who are info gathering. And then the top 3% at the very tip of the pyramid are people who are ready to buy now. And the challenge is really understanding that you need to know where each person that you're talking to fits into that buyer's journey and what journey that they specifically need to take, right? So for example, if you take someone who is in the problem aware stage, which is where the majority of people that we work with now are, they need a lot more education, right? You can't expect to get on a call with somebody or even before you even get on a call with them, you can't expect to book a call immediately with somebody who's just problem aware, because you might throw them off, you might turn them off. What people need in that stage is just a lot more education, a lot more nurturing. They might need to see some more of your content. They might need more time to kind of like divulge themselves in understanding that, okay, right, I have this problem and there is this solution out there. And then they'll go into the info gathering stages, which is then this is them doing their due diligence. They'll compare you to your competitors, or they'll try to do it themselves. And then from there, you might move them up to buying now. very few of the people that we've talked to, I think only one of the clients we work with now are actually, I would actually classify them as coming in from the buy now stage. Sure, the buyer cycle is a lot shorter during the buy now stage, but then if you only focus on those people who are in the buy now stage, you're missing out on 37% of people who might just need a couple more touch points, a little more nurturing, right? So really, it's important to knowing that problem. It's important for you to build a system that matches their journey.
This is really good stuff that easily gets forgotten, that there is a need to understand your market. So if I can kind of pull out a couple of mistakes from what you were just saying, David, what I'm kind of hearing is that there's not very much of a laid out plan on LinkedIn, perhaps. Like, it's not thought of in a systematic way. And maybe that's the counterpoint to what I was saying a moment ago, where, yes, it is a little bit more of, in terms of comparison, like real world networking or having a convention, this kind of thing. But this is where it's actually quite different, and that is that if you don't come at it with a really well designed set of steps that you're going to execute on in a disciplined way, like it's a marketing campaign, you're going to fall far short. So you're flat-footed and you're kind of just going with the flow. You're probably going to get some good results if you can talk about your solution with a few people. But what I'm hearing from what you just said is there's a huge audience that you're just not going to reach without this kind of understanding of who's in your market, just by sheer dint of a lack of focus on your part as the business development person. Is that on point? And how would you flesh that even further?
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. So I would give you one example. We have one client who actually takes a full year to close a deal. And if you're not aware of that and you're just always trying to close the deal in the first month that you book in a call with somebody, then you're never going to get that opportunity to, or actually, close that client. So it's important to understand that if, either from historical data based on your own business, how long it takes for someone to close, or if you're just starting out in business, asking around people in your industry, how long does it typically close and what's the buyer's journey like, so that you can start building your system around that and it can get you there a lot faster, right? So I think it's just a matter of putting that system in place that will give you the consistency and the predictability that you need, right? Realistically. And that the other thing it's going to get you away from is relying too much on referrals, which is great. They're a lot really warm. If you get the right referral, it's a lot easier to close, but that doesn't provide you with the consistency that you want to have as a business owner. Because at the end of the day, I know I'm going a little bit off topic now, but for me, having a business means building something where I can remove myself from the day-to-day and have it still run consistently and predictably as if I were still there.
Yeah.
Right. If I didn't have that, I feel like I would have just built a business and made myself a full-time job and basically employed myself within that system. So I think, further removing it from just, what it means to figure out LinkedIn, it's just a matter of building system. For me, it's all about how do you systemize those things. Even when you network in people, I believe when I was doing back in the day, I had a system around it, the way that I approach people. How do I start conversations? Yes, I still kept it organic, but there was a methodology behind the way I approached it. And it's the exact same thing that we're doing online now.
Well, I mean, that's worthy of a show of its own, isn't it? Just the need to systematize every one of your business processes in a super intentional way. And I know that a lot of business owners and founders, you get into the running of the thing, and it's hard to justify the bandwidth that would be required of you to do that systematizing because you're focused on what you're doing right now and in this quarter that you're in, maybe the next quarter, what have you. But in reality, if you're smart, you're going to be investing time on that because that's going to pay you back tenfold in terms of the investment time. I love that. It's a great side point and definitely probably a future topic here on Evolve Sales Live. But let's get back to the LinkedIn marketing. So if we're going to say systematizing this approach, you said that there are 5 steps that anyone can implement to create. You called this, we were having a conversation. You said that you can create a revenue generating machine on LinkedIn. That's really great language. Let's unpack that. What are the 5 steps from overview, and then let's dig deeper on each of those.
Sure. So on an overview level, the 5 steps is what we call the 5 C's. And the 5 C's are: number 1, client avatar; number 2, credibility; number 3 is connections; number 4 is conversions; and then number 5 is clients. So should we just go into client avatar and unfold that one first?
Let's go right on through them. Yep.
All right. So first one, client avatar. Nothing else matters if you mess this one up, or if you don't not mess this one up, but also if you don't take your time to hone in on this client avatar piece. And what that really means is getting clear on the companies that you want to reach out to, and then specifically who are the individuals within the companies, what are their titles, where do they live, what are these companies making, what industries are they in, who are they serving. That's one piece. The people you want to reach out to on LinkedIn. The second piece of the client avatar is identifying their hair on fire problems. What are the things that keep them up at night? For example, one of the things that I recently got was this time tracker app. And the way that they reached out to me I thought was really awesome, was that they reached out to me asking if, are you struggling do you feel like you're spending a lot of time doing everything, but nothing feels like it's ever getting done? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's my hair on fire problem. But if they had approached me saying, hey, do you need a time tracker? I'm like, why would I need a time tracker? Right. So what I'm saying there is, what a lot of businesses that I've seen in the past think is their clients or their prospects' hair on fire problem is not actually it. Right? You can't come to them directly with a solution. You got to go to them on an emotional level. What is the thing that they're feeling? What is it that they're experiencing? For me, I always feel like I'm working a lot, and sometimes it may feel like I'm not getting anything done at all. So that was a great pitch, in my opinion. So, that's an example of a hair and fire problem. And
yeah, I love that. Jay Abraham, one of the great fathers of business consulting, said that people are 5 times more likely to take action to solve a problem than they are just to gain a benefit. So that's really a key point. That sounds like it takes some pretty good workshopping to do. Because if you're thinking about just your solution, that isn't going to get you where you need to go with this, right? What do you recommend on that? How do you workshop out ways to talk about this and present it?
I would say, if you have existing clients, ask your clients. Go to the source. If you don't have clients yet, ask the market. People who who you think might have the problem, and then just ask them, hey, what problems are you having? Because I think realistically, any great product that's been created these days is a solution to a hair on fire problem that somebody's having, right? It's hard to create a product and then try to sell it and shove it down someone's throat versus just figuring out what someone's problem is and then solving it from there. So I think it's just a matter of asking, taking your time, doing surveys. That's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, so client avatar is getting really clear on who out there has a hair on fire problem you can solve. I love it. So
correct.
Now what do we do? Credibility was your next one, right? So what credibility is a great term, generally speaking. What's it mean in this context?
Yeah, in this context, it just means creating content to position you as the expert, as a thought leader, specifically on LinkedIn, right? And obviously content, when you make it for social media platforms, you want to make sure that it's native to the platform. So on LinkedIn, what's very important is to make sure that the content is about them, not about you, right? Give them the strategies that they need to actually solve the problem that they're having, right? So for me, one of the greatest things that I love doing when I talk to prospects or anybody in general is I just love giving away the strategy. This is exactly what we do. This is exactly how we do it. Just like how we're talking on this call right now. What ends up happening is they're going to start realizing that it's either a lot of work or they're going to try to do themselves, and it's a lot more complicated than they didn't think it is, and they'll come to you as the the solution provider. So putting out as much value as you can, talking about the issues that they're having, talk less about yourself, and also know that this is the things I love talking about, especially for clients who work with us. They start seeing people engaging in their content or commenting on their content, and they start saying stuff like, hey, none of the people that are engaging in my content are people that I want to be working with. These aren't my client avatars, blah, blah, blah. And so the reason I'm talking about this now is that a lot of the people who may engage in your content will never be your clients. And that's okay, because they're your promoters. When they comment on your content, what ends up happening is your content shows up on their feed, and they may have someone in their connection or their network who may have the problem that you're trying to solve, right? And then that's where the power of engagement comes from. Not everybody who engages in your content is going to want to be your client, or is going to be your client for that matter.
That makes sense. So I can understand that an awful lot of business development officers and founders would not want to give up what they may think of as their secret sauce, right? If I explain too much about how we solve the problem, they're just going to want to go and do it on their own. What I'm hearing you say, David, is actually you're positioning yourself as an expert. They probably are not going to be able to execute on this because it's not what they do every day. They have their own business to run, and there's still going to be real value in having you come alongside, and you can still engage with many of your clients. So it's a good investment. It's a risk reward calculation that works in your favor. Is kind of what I think I kind of heard you say. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
it's you got to give away bits and pieces, and people they can try to piece it together, but it's gonna be tough, right? So a lot of YouTubers nowadays, especially, or people who are running companies like this, they would give away the strategies, but they won't give it all. You don't give it out in one giant 5-hour video. This is exactly start to finish. Give it out in bits and pieces.
Right.
Content on LinkedIn videos should only be a minute to a minute and a half long anyways. So whatever you can give away in that piece, let them, people won't spend the time to piece it together.
Yeah.
And so if you're not doing it, your competitors are going to be doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't help but share this little anecdote. I married into an Italian family, and my wife's grandmother was a classic 4'5" tall Italian grandma, constantly cooking for us. And she would give away her recipes to her daughters-in-law and family members. And we would all try it. And of course, if you marry Andy, everyone cooks, right? I cook. I had to. I wouldn't be able to be married to my wife if I didn't. So you try it out, and it's never exactly the same. As there's no way I'm ever going to get the panettone to actually come out of the oven and taste exactly like Nana's did, because she just did it better. And maybe it's a little bit like that with some of these things here too, right?
Yeah, you have to have an eye for it as well. Like, what exactly are you looking for? I can give you the strategy, but if you don't have the eye to say, hey, what is it that I'm actually looking for in every step of the process, you're never going to piece it together exactly the right way, which is what makes us unique as well.
Sure,
I am not saying that I know the answer to everything and that I'm seeing everything the right way, but I have my set of unique skills, my partner does, and everybody else on my team does.
And it's what you do. It's your focus. So it's it comes down to specialization as well. Correct. So it makes a lot of sense. So you got clarity on who you can serve, the hair on fire, prospect that's niched to where you belong. You've got a solution. Then you start to share some of the goodies on how you solve problems, how you do what you do. And then next on your list was connections. Now, this seems like a no-brainer. Obviously, I want to get as many connections as I can have on LinkedIn. I mean, talk to us about this topic. Like in terms of your framework, what should I be aware of on that?
Yeah. So there's two ways to do connections. There's the spray and pray, which we call basically that's connecting to everybody on LinkedIn, hoping that something's going to stay. It's like throwing spaghetti on the wall, essentially is what you're doing, right? And that's the approach you don't want to go down with. The most obvious reason is you're going to be connecting with a bunch of people and wasting your connections on people who will never become your clients. And the reason I say that is because LinkedIn nowadays they have very strict limitations on how many invites you can send per day, and that's to prevent this exact problem of spray and pray. So you don't want to be connecting with, if you can only send 25 invites per day, you rather take your time, vet the 25 people that you're sending invites to versus sending 25 invites and only having 5 who are actually end up being people that you want to be talking to. So stay away from that. And what you really want to go down towards is, number one, vetting the people and then connecting with them through personalized high touch messages. So what that means is everybody gets a custom connection request message. What that means is going onto the profile or the business's website and find something unique about them, something to talk about, something to compliment them on. Just be human. At the end of the day, people buy from people. And I am at a point now where I truly believe that people can sniff out when you're not being, when you're automating your process, when you're not being authentic. So that's why for us, connections is just really that high touch approach. And it's not just in that initial connection with, the message you send them to connect with them. It's after they've connected with you. Okay, great. What are the additional things that need to be said? Additional things that I need to compliment them on to make them really trust me, make them want to be like, I want to reply to David, not, oh my God, David's messaging me again. And then eventually some people would go as far as either blocking you on LinkedIn, which is also not good for the algorithm, or they'll just unconnect with you on LinkedIn, which, you just wasted your time doing that for what?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because now you can see if someone is live on LinkedIn or not. And so when someone is not live but blink, here comes a response it's a direct message. You're like, okay, dead giveaway. Yes, it's automated. It's not a great look. It doesn't make you want to engage. Underneath that sounds like, there are limitations of the technology that one should be aware of too, right? And there's a lot of these steps that frankly systematized doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as automated. It just means it's that, it's like that back to that recipe for the panettone, right? You do this thing in that order and you do it that same way every time. Is that correct? Some of this probably could be automated. Like talk to us about that. What are some of the concerns and best practices on that? What do you recommend?
Yeah, certainly I would say that, the sending of the messages can be, automated, whether it's automated as in you have an assistant who sends it out for you, or you have your own tool that does it for you. But the part that we do before having those messages, being sent out is just is preparing it. If this is the person that I know we're sending it to, what do we need to do to customize that specific message and then bulk prepare it for somebody else to send it out? Right. So there's still that human element in there until the day AI gets so smart where it can read someone's profile, prepare the scripts for us, and then boom, message gets sent out. I still think that human touch is needed. Yeah. So that's, the automation part is really just the sending of the message, the action of, okay, so once the reply comes in, maybe we get a notification in Slack or somewhere that lets us know that, hey, so-and-so replied. As far as that goes, everything else that we do or everything else that you should be doing is in the conversations after somebody actually connects, be the human that they want to talk to.
Yeah.
Be or bring in an appointment setter who can, replicate your tone of voice, an assistant who can reply on your behalf and have that personal conversation for you if you don't have the capacity and bandwidth for it. Don't keep spamming them with messages and templatize everything and just hope that, this message is going to land. Again, people can sniff that stuff out.
Sure. Yeah. The human brain is still the faster computer up till now. Yep. Still for now, as far as we know. So, well, let's talk about the final two steps, maybe even together. And the reason, to me, it strikes me as the conversions in clients. I'm thinking, all right, so isn't that kind of the same thing? So maybe unpack that for us. Conversions versus clients. How do you differentiate those, and how should we operate on those?
So for us, conversion really means converting them from online to offline. And that's basically identifying where they are in the buyer's journey and then bringing that marketing lead offline to becoming a sales lead. So a marketing lead is basically just somebody who's raised their hands, be like, hey, I'd love to have a conversation, interested in having a chat. And then when they become a sales lead is actually when they actually enter your sales pipeline. So they booked in that call, they filled in your pre-booking questionnaire. You've had that initial discovery call with them, and they are qualified to become a buyer for your product. So that's the conversion piece, right?
They're exiting the marketing funnel and entering the sales funnel.
Correct. And the actual client's piece is, finally turning that sales lead into a client. And that's figuring out what are the additional things that they need. Again, where are they in the buyer's journey? Do they need to talk to some client references? Do they need a proposal? Are they waiting on funding? If they are, when should we follow up? So on and so forth. And identifying those things, because again, just because you have a sales pipeline does not necessarily mean everybody flows the exact same way. You want to be human. You want to figure out where they are in their process and give them what they need at the end of the day.
Let's bring in some questions. We have one from the audience that's asking, so how can you organically move through these steps in your 5? Like what are some best practices around kind of trigger, because it's almost like a mini conversion each movement, right? To go from just that first touch to even the end of that marketing funnel. Those are little mini conversions that have to happen. So how do you recommend that we initiate those?
Yeah. So if I were to get very tactical, I think it's a good way to approach it. In client avatar, the part that you're really going to have to solve for yourself and figure out is what is the hair and fire problem. And the reason you want to figure that stuff out is because your messaging is going to revolve around those things. In addition to that, is getting clear on the companies and individuals. So we use Sales Navigator for all of our clients and even for ourselves to figure out what are the companies. So the approach that I love taking first, a lot of the people who go on Sales Navigator will directly go into using the lead search function where they're like, okay, this industry, this title, give me a ton of results based in the US. Maybe you'll get 50,000 CMOs in all of the US, or probably 1 million. But the challenge becomes a lot of those CMOs don't work in the exact companies that you want to go after. So that's why I always say search for the companies first. So go to the company search feature, type in the industries, how much are they making? $500,000 to $1 million, great. Based in the US, the specific industry, and then based on maybe the 1,000 companies that come out, take those companies, put it back into the lead search function, and then search for the CMOs, VP of Marketing, Director of Marketing, or anybody, whatever target you want to go after, to find the individuals within those companies. That's probably the best way you can identify people and vet them, because you already know that those individuals work within those companies, right? So that's the two parts I'm getting clear on the client avatar first, the tactical piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I love it. Well, there's so much more we could discuss. This half hour has absolutely blown by, David. I really thank you for being with us today. I wonder how our audience members could reach to you directly if they'd like to continue their education on your approach to building a revenue-generating machine on LinkedIn. Where should they go online?
Sure. Yep. They can go to jdleadsonline.com, or they can just connect with me on LinkedIn, drop me a DM, and we can start talking from there.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Well, a reminder to everyone that Evolve Sales Live is sponsored by Overpass.com. Overpass is the world's leading low-cost platform for hiring top-quality talent fast. See what makes Overpass different for yourself. Open your free account at Overpass.com. David, for the whole team here at Evolve Sales, and on behalf of the audience, thanks again for being here. Audience, thanks for being on the show. That's going to do it for us today. Take care, everybody. Have a profitable weekend.
Have a good one.